on the calendar. Tonight will begin the 24th day of Elul, and then which means we are about 5 or 6 days. Sunday night begins Rosh Hashanah, and I thought we would go over some of the important themes, concepts, ideas. We did it last week, but now we're going to do it again this week. We're going to focus on certain aspects. I want to talk a lot about the Shofar, which we haven't done that yet, because the holiday actually in the Torah doesn't, as I mentioned in last week's class, it's not referred to as Rosh Hashanah, but rather it's called the day of blowing, because that really is the essence of the day. But it has different components to it. So first, before we go into the different components of Rosh Hashanah and the 10 days of Teshuvah, which Rosh Hashanah is actually on one level just a part of the 10 days of Teshuvah, of the 10 first days of the year, let's go into understanding in general the idea of how we as Jews look at the calendar. And I often like to discuss this before we discuss the holiday, because it makes it so much more meaningful to us. Because many holidays, when we think of a holiday, usually there's different kinds of holidays in the secular world. There's the holiday like Valentine's Day, where there's a lot of pressure. It's like, oh no, you have to fall in love or have someone to have, to be in your life with, and if not, then you want to commit suicide, which is what happens. I'm sure there's a lot of that going on, God forbid. But on Valentine's Day, there is Christmas, there is Thanksgiving, there is New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, and there's different ways that there's Halloween, which is an interesting holiday, especially here in downtown Manhattan. We get some pretty hardcore Halloween people who like to really dress up in very scary ways, and I witnessed myself. But in Judaism, a holiday is not just a day that we just kind of get into the theme of the day, or even just commemorate something that happened. And I think most people celebrate holidays, don't even know why they're doing it, but it's just kind of fun, just play along with the program, especially kind of like St. Patrick's Day, where you get to just kind of just instead of go to work, just drink the whole day and just, go to bars, which they do around here. Jewish holidays are all about tapping into the incredible potential that exists in that period of time. That's, if you could say, that's what it's all about. Every day of the year, for that matter, has a potential, has something unique about it every single day. But certain days, a plain Tuesday, let's say in November, we don't necessarily know, there isn't a holiday, so there's not a special unique energy, although there is a unique energy, but it's not necessarily noted as a holiday. But then there's certain days of the year which are called holidays, or chagim, as you say in Hebrew, days of celebration, or just unique days that have a special, unique something potentially that if we understand it and we connect with it, and particularly we follow the mitzvahs associated with that day, we can tap into that day itself and tap into the energy of that day, be inspired from that day. So instead of just being something meaningless or something that would just get crazy, just get drunk or and just kind of focus on something very superficial that usually leads to either A, depression, B, a new membership at a local gym, or C, looking at a credit card bill saying, what the heck did I spend all that money on? Where did it all go? Instead of all those things, we try to walk away and say, wow, that's amazing. How do I, that was really inspirational. I love that theme. It was like something touched me, I got something, I came away with something, I got it, I got something from it. So if you look, the calendar kind of goes like in this circular pattern, and we counter every day. Every one of these special days, we kind of encounter the holiday again. That Purim, that Passover, that Lag BaOmer. These special days that we kind of tap in. So it's like a circle, and every year we go. It's like we go over it again, and we go over it again, and we go over it again, and we go over it again. But it's not just the same thing. It's brand new. It's totally brand new. So what taking that point, going into the upcoming holiday this coming week, called Rosh Hashanah, what is the energy? What is the spirituality? What is the theme? What is the soul of the day? David, what do you think? When you think Rosh Hashanah, in your experience growing up, or in your life now, and your wisdom, and and all the things that you've encountered in your life, what is Rosh Hashanah to David David?
David.
David something? David
Avraham.
David Avraham. What is Rosh Hashanah to you?
Taken a lot of classes, so.
Good. Give you take not just don't just give me information. Give me the information that lives in your heart.
Well,
and you reveal it to us. A lot of wants to know.
My personal take is we're married to Hashem, and we are renewing our vows once again every year. We kind of need to renew our contract.
Okay.
We're always kind of on the fringe of getting off the path, and we got to get back on track again. And but the classroom more answer.
Okay, that was your feeling, your vibe, your energy. We're getting remarried. We're renewing our vows, as they say, like in. Okay, go ahead.
This is the day of a coronation, where we crown God as King.
Oh, that's you went to some pretty high level classes.
And for blowing
correct.
the shofar.
Blowing the shofar, and we coronate God through the shofar. Correct. Okay. Vlada, do you have any ideas in your? I know this is kind of maybe your first Rosh Hashanah experience, but after all we've learned, we've discussed, any just a couple of words, word association. I say Rosh Hashanah, you say.
So Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of human journey.
Oh.
Right.
Now we're going deep.
Just to become like more energized, I would say.
Energized.
It's also the anniversary of the creation.
Kind of like in Star Trek. Energized.
It's the anniversary of the creation of the world.
Yes. We got a lot of themes. Creation of the world, the birthday of the world, coronation, God is king, but also as an individual. It's all these themes. Everything everyone said is true and it's right. So I'm going to try in this brief period of time capture some of the essence of the day and apply it to all these different things, which there could be a few classes on the concept of coronation, God is king, a few classes on why shofar, and how does it relate to a person's journey in life. But let's start straight with the name of the holiday that we call it by. Even though the Torah itself calls it the day of blowing, we call it Rosh Hashanah. There are a few times of the year called Rosh Hashanah, which means end of the year. But particularly this is the most common most widely known, and what we refer to as the head of the year. Although there are other times of the year you can call head of the year. But specifically, it is referred to as Rosh Hashanah, and is in the teachings of Chassidus, and the Rebbe's teachings often point out that it's specifically called Rosh Hashanah as opposed to the New Year. People would often refer to a year as the New Year. We're coming up on December 31st. It will be 2019, I believe, and there'll be a new year. But no one calls it. People don't say, "Oh, Happy Head Year." That's a Jewish thing. We say Happy Head Year. Why don't we just call it New Year? So there's a difference between New Year and Head of the Year. New Year means, that's all, we just left one year and we're just changing the number. But now it goes from 5778 to 5779. We're just changing the number. We're starting a new cycle. But that's not what's implied by Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah itself, the name itself teaches us something very different about the day and how we should prepare for it and why it's so special, because it's ahead. So the way we look at every new entity in time and in space has what we would refer to as a Rosh. Rosh literally means ahead. Reish, Aleph, Shin. Which, by the way, Bereshit, the first word of the Torah is Bereshit, which means in the beginning. But in that word is contained that word Rosh, head. So the whole Torah begins with the word head. And the year begins with a head. But you know what? Not just the way it works is everything has a head in the beginning. So for example, besides the head of the year, we'll go back to in a second, there's a head to every month called Rosh Chodesh. There's a head to every week, which you could say is the beginning of the week. And there's a head to every day, which is the first few moments of the day. So really, Rosh Hashanah is just the general Rosh, the general head of the whole year. And there's a head to the month, and there's a head to the week, and there's a head to the day. And that head, what does that mean, ahead? We don't just start in the beginning and then just continue onward, but rather those first few moments, or that first part called head, is what the brain, the analogy of a head and a brain is to the body, is what Rosh Hashanah is to the rest of the year. What does a brain do for the body? It directs it. It's the most sensitive part of the body. How the brain feels, the rest of the body will feel, and so too vice versa. The body will affect the brain. It is the most intense, you could say, or the most important, valuable part of that place and time. So, meaning the way that we usher in this new head of the year, which is, by the way, not just Rosh Hashanah, but it's actually, you could say, it's the first beginning. Depends on what we consider the beginning. We could look at the first 10 days of the year. We could look at actually include Sukkot following that, with the first month of the year, or even the first 2 days of the year. But it's like, this is the period of time we call whatever the head is to the body, is the head to the year. So everything that we do, all the things that we practice, and all of the thoughts and the ideas and the stories and what we're going to be reading about, and the way the prayers and the rituals and people going around and trying to get forgiveness from other people, which you find you're doing that during Rosh Hashanah, because kind of you want to start the year fresh and new. You don't want God to zap you after Yom Kippur. So you want to. That's my joke about it. That people go around. It's very common in the Jewish world that during the first 10 days, people often are asking for forgiveness. I'm not knocking that, but sometimes it's kind of feels a little bit superficial, because people often will just like post on Facebook and say, "Oh, if I offended anyone, may you forgive me." So I don't want a Facebook post. I want a call. I want a personal connection. I don't want. It's hard to really, So what are they saying in other words? Please God, I don't want to get zapped, so I'm going to post something on Facebook. Hopefully I'll have a good year because I posted the thing on Facebook. It doesn't work that way. It's got to be real. It's got to be a real connection. If you really did offend someone, you hurt someone, or you feel like there's something you need to clean up, then this is a good time of the year to do it, because it's the head of the year. And what happens at this time will affect the rest of the year. So number one, what we need to realize is, besides putting aside, and that's why it's a day of coronation. And that's why it's about the Shofar. And that's why all these things, because number one, it is a Rosh. It is the head to the year. And therefore, a lot of the customs that we have in this day. But what, for example, besides blowing the Shofar, what else do we do in Rosh Hashanah? Dave? Tashlich. We throw our sins into the water, which is a customary prayer. But we pray, we mention God's attributes of mercy by the water. Do we eat any particular foods? Apples. Sweet foods. Sweet foods. As a matter of fact, according to Jewish law, you're not supposed to eat foods that are bitter, sharp, that are like harsh. Why? Because we don't want a harsh year. I don't want a bitter year. I enjoy sharp, spicy food. But to be honest, I don't want a spicy year. I want a very sweet year. I want an apple honey year, which means things go my way, things work out nicely. There's a lot of love, there's a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, a lot of good things happening in a revealed way. So the energy should be focused on the sweetness. The rest of the year, you can do all those things and eat all those you might say, well, what's the difference what kind of food you eat? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that the energy, the customs that we have, even eating, should permeate the message of what the day is about. And these days, we want to make them sweet. So Rosh Hashanah, by the way, is just 2 days, but there's also what's called the 10 days of Teshuvah. So there's two aspects to Rosh Hashanah. There's Rosh Hashanah as 2 days unto themselves that are different from any other days of the year.
Okay.
So once again, head of the year, these days will very much affect the days leading up to Rosh Hashanah, the days following Rosh Hashanah. But there's also what's called the 10 days of Teshuvah. And Rosh Hashanah is part of those 10 days. So there's Rosh Hashanah as an independent day, or 2 days, that is a unique theme, which is blowing shofar and saying the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. But then there's Rosh Hashanah as it's part of what's called the 10 days of Teshuvah, which starts Rosh Hashanah and ends Yom Kippur. So there's two parts of it. It's the beginning of a 10-day process, but it's also 2 days unto itself, which makes it unique. So it's good to understand the differences between the two themes of the day of Rosh Hashanah and that of Yom Kippur. But okay, so now that we understand, it's the number one, it's a head. What should we do? What do we do? What do we do on this day? So in order to understand that, let's look at these prayer books and look at one of the most important prayers that we're going to read on Rosh Hashanah. And there's two most important parts of the prayers. One is the blowing of the shofar, and the other one is another prayer called the Masana Tokef. But now, as mentioned, the most important mitzvah of the day, if there's anything that the bare minimum we should do on Rosh Hashanah, if it's not a day of Shabbos, is to take part in the listening of the shofar, which can be done in synagogue on both days of Rosh Hashanah when there's not Shabbos, or your local Chabad rabbi usually will blow the shofar for you, and in the afternoon or any time throughout the day. So a person should do a very important mitzvah to hear the shofar, and the shofar has many different implications. But I want to focus on just a couple of different aspects of it. We're going to look in the prayers. Now, first, we could ask, what is unique about this mitzvah of blowing the shofar? What do we know?
That's what it says in the Torah. That it doesn't say that you in the Torah that you need to read this 200-page machzor. It says you shall listen
Blow
to
shofar.
the sound of the shofar.
Right. Why do you think?
So it's a wake-up call.
It's a wake-up call.
And it's also what will happen when Mashiach comes.
So I'll tell you some of the themes here. Well, pass me that shofar right here. Well, I'll just mention some of the laws. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things which can tell us some of the. First of all, the law is all it says in the Torah that you're supposed to hear the shofar blown, but there are certain ways the shofar needs to be blown. But first of all, the shofar itself, it's the horn of a ram. Okay. So the ram used to be on some ram's head. This is and then it was cut off, and we blow into it. And there's certain ways in which it's supposed to be blown. But first of all, in order for it to be a kosher shofar, where you blow into it, the hole has to be smaller than where the air comes out. It just has a certain lesson there in that. It has to be bent. Can't be a straight horn. It has to be a bent horn. And there are certain blasts that there's actually three different kinds of blowing, which represent three different kinds of cries. There's literally now the three cries are called Turah, Tekiah, and Shavarim, which correspond to different ways a person cries when something affects them in the most deep level. Now there's so what, for example, is Tekiah. You hear the word Tekiah. Those grew up in a more traditional synagogue. You remember hearing the guy who would blow the shofar, and then there'd be a guy next to the guy blowing the shofar. He would go Tekiah, and then we go eh. What is that sound of eh? That is just like a general cry. They just eh. But then there's what's teruah, and then there's shvarim. And there's two different kinds. Those are two different kinds of cries. One goes, eh. It's just a cry that instead of being like a sobbing cry, there's one just a long-lasting cry, like, I'm sorry if I'm doing this right, You cry, person could go. That is a continuous cry, a deeper cry. Then there's a cry which is, there are different levels of which is considered deeper, which is more permeating the person's reality. So, why do we have to hear this cry sound on Rosh Hashanah? Going back to in connecting, we said earlier that today's the day of the head of the year. So if it's about listening to a musical instrument, if it's about getting us into a mode, that's theoretically, we know Rosh Hashanah is a day of spirituality. We know it's a day that we're supposed to be thinking about things that are more important than just simple little resolutions about, that often people think of in the years. We know it's an important day. But yet, one would think, if you're going to make your own religion, if you're going to create your own new year, and you create the way that you want to, and we want to emphasize that there should be something musical, some sounding of an instrument that would get us into the mode. Putting aside, let's say you don't know nothing, you know nothing about this shofar thing. Okay, we know sounds cool because we heard about the shofar thing. But what would you play? What instrument would you play? What song would you play? Alex, what would you like to hear?
Piano.
Piano. Yes. No, definitely. Piano.
Guitar. I don't know.
What song?
Something upbeat.
Upbeat, yeah?
Yeah, something upbeat.
I think maybe let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Everyone together. Whisper words of wisdom. Come in the whole room. 300 people singing let it be. That would be moving. That would be shaking. Yes. Rosh Hashanah, let it be. Yes. Dave, what do you think? Don't tell me you want to hear a ram's horn, because that's not what you want to hear.
It may not be what I want to hear, but I think the whole point of the process is not let it be.
Why not?
Because,
You like Paul McCartney?
Because we all would like to, paint our own picture. But the purpose of this whole holiday season is to take us out of our comfort zone, make us uncomfortable so that we can change.
All right. We should do what God wants. Forget that for now. That's not for the part of the discussion. What do we want? Okay. Billy Joel.
Hallelujah by Tom Stapp. Hallelujah by Tom Stapp.
Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. That would be for me. Listen, if I was God and I was going to create my own religion, totally that's what I would do. But seemingly God has the God that we call God had a different plan. And he told us to blow this thing called the shofar. Now, what is special, unique about this instrument, which makes it very different? Now, there are, by the way, people who are very talented at blowing the shofar. I'm pretty good myself, but there are people that literally can play songs. But that's not usually what you do. Instead, we blow those sounds, as mentioned earlier, the shofar and the tekiah and the turah and so forth. So what is it? Why the shofar, not one of these beautiful instruments? Why? Because you think about it, these songs were composed, put together so beautifully. I mean, first of all, they didn't just come, when they first came out, these songs, Stairway to Heaven, Hallelujah, even though Hallelujah is a Jewish word, but okay, by what's his name? Leonard Cohen. They were mastered. They were mastered in the studio. They were thought out. They got to the point where, now the final product, it's amazing. It's very touching. But what is a shofar? It's a cry of the soul. The cry of the soul is a simple, true, sincere expression of your essence. And it doesn't sound like a perfect song, but it's perfect to Hashem because it's real. It's not composed. It's not thought out. It comes straight from the most inner essence. So on the day that we call the head of the year, it's not a day for having it's not a day for perfection or a perfect song. It's a day of coming from what's true, from what's in. There's usually a story that I'll tell right now that I mentioned before I blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, a well-known story about a famous follower, a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. His name is Zev Wolf or Wolf Kitzes. And he was a simple man, or he was a loyal follower of the great rabbi, the Baal Shem Tov. And one day, before Rosh Hashanah, the Baal Shem Tov comes over to this guy, Wolf. He says, I need you to be the one this year who's going to blow the shofar in the big synagogue in our town on Rosh Hashanah. And he thought, that's crazy. Usually the rabbi, the big rabbi, the head rabbi blows the shofar. The leader should blow the shofar. It's not just about blowing it in the right way, but it's also, being on that spiritual stature that you're leading the congregation and you're bringing their prayers up to heaven. So he didn't feel, who am I? You're the Baal Shem Tov, you're the holy rabbi. I'm going to blow shofar for you? He says, I said, no, I want you to do it. But he says, I don't even know the hidden secrets. When you do something that important, these great rabbis, not only do they know how to do it right, but they understand the mystical, spiritual implications of what's happening. They can look at certain letters of God's name and meditate on those letters. And that itself brings the prayers up above. So the Baal Shem Tov says, I'm going to write for you on a piece of paper all the letters that you need just to look at and think about when you're blowing the shofar. Everything will be perfect. So he couldn't say no to him. So he took the pieces of paper and he put it in his prayer book. And he put them there with these holy letters and these holy words written down by the Baal Shem Tov, and he held them so carefully in his prayer book. Came to the day of Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, came time to blow the shofar. He took his shofar and he was ready to blow, and he opened up the prayer book to open to the pieces of paper, but those letters and those names to be, meditating on. And he looked, and they were gone. And he said, I couldn't believe it. And there was hundreds of people, thousands of people in the synagogue waiting. And he kept going back and forth, and he was going, he was checking them, and his heart was beating up and down. He couldn't believe in the middle of this moment, the blessings were made. He now had to blow the shofar. He had to do it. Everyone was waiting. Everyone, and you know how Jews are, they're impatient. No, let's get going. Everyone's, we're in a rush. We have to get things moving. The prayer service have to go on. And he didn't know what to do. He looked in his pockets, and he was broken, just broken. Couldn't believe it. He somehow lost or forgot these notes. That means he had forget it. He was just going to blow like a simple, without all that information that the Baal Shem Tov would normally place, would normally blow with. He wouldn't know what to do. So he just blew the shofar, and it was horrible. He sounded terrible. He was extremely broken. And he just blew the best he could, but the whole thing was horrible in his eyes. After the blowing was over, he hid under his tallis, felt horrible, ran out of the room as fast as he could after the services, and all of a sudden he felt a hand on his shoulder, and it was the Baal Shem Tov. And he turned to the Baal Shem Tov, and he knew the Baal Shem Tov must have known what had happened. And he said, I am so sorry. I ruined it. This whole year is now destroyed for the whole congregation and for you, and I apologize. And the Baal Shem Tov looked at him and said exactly the opposite. That was the best shofar. You reached levels, and you blew the shofar in such a way that was better than I could have blown. And he said, how is that possible? How is that possible? He said, let me tell you something. He said, in heaven, in Shemayim, there are chambers that when we unlock them, blessings come down. Chamber for good health, chamber for good sustenance, chamber for happy relationships, all these chambers. And somehow, if you reach the right chamber, you could open up that chamber, and it could open up a wealth of blessings. But there's one chamber that when you get to that one, it opens all the chambers. And that's called the chamber of the broken heart. That's the way the story goes. He said, I knew that somehow I could not reach that level. In that moment of brokenness, in that moment when you felt so broken, because you had such a sincerity, it was not with your brain. It was straight from the essence of your heart, the inner cry of the heart. That's what opened up all the channelways. So the Baal Shem Tov then took out of his pocket the papers that he had originally put in his siddur and gave them back to him. He says, thank you very much. What's the lesson of the story? How is it applied to the understanding why we blow the shofar? Because that's what it sounds like. That's what a shofar sounds like. It's a broken heart. It's a sincere broken heart. It's the essence of who we truly are on the inside. All year long, we get caught up in our shtick, as they call it, stuff. Our yearly activities, having to wake up in the day, start the day, succeed in what we're doing, or deal with the inner, whether it's the inner desires or the inner sense of lacking in our lives, or the need to accomplish, the need to get through the day, get through the week, get through the month, get through the year. and we're just filled with our regular life in the jungle, life in this human world. And we forget what it's all about. We forget the true mission of what we're here in this world for. We forget why was I born? In every very common theme you find in books of motivation books, or people who talk about motivation, how to get our lives more in tune with who we are, more in tune with our inner beliefs. Very often you read about this practice that you think about, what are they going to say about me at my how are they going to eulogize me at my funeral? That's how you know what's important to you in life. They're not going to say, oh, he didn't do this, or he didn't work hard enough he didn't spend enough time on the internet. The poor guy needed to spend more time on the internet. That's not what they're going to say at the eulogy. So that's a practice that people have. And now, what you want people to say at your eulogy, that's how you know what's important to you in life. Okay, that's a simple little nice thing in self-help. But in Jewish practice and in Jewish thought, and specifically on this day of Rosh Hashanah, when it's the head of the year, and this literally affects everything that will go on in my life this entire year. And we want to do it with joy. We want to fill it with joy. We want to fill it with happiness. We want to fill it with love for Hashem and Hashem's love for us, and trust that it will be good. But at the same time, we want to reach the true essence of what we're about. And when we are able to hear the sound of the shofar and somehow reveal our own shofar, so our own cry of the soul. There's certain books that say that some certain cries are so profound, so meaningful. It's like they're it's a quiet cry. There's a loud cry, which is when we're really feeling sad, but then there's even a deeper sadness or deeper brokenness, which is almost like a quiet, like a coming from within. So what is on page 127? We have a mission here. We have a job to break through everything and break through boundaries on this day, to bring down blessings. How do we do it? Well, first of all, there's a custom to recite this prayer on the top of 127 to the choir master. Livnei Karach Mizmor, and it's said 7 times, corresponding to the 7, bringing down blessings through the 7 blessings, so the 7 heavens. And then we recite these verses, starting from Mina Meitzer Karasi Ka Anemi Bemerchavya, and then we recite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verses, all different verses. But if you take, anybody here understand the Hebrew?
I can follow.
Okay, if you see where it says Koli Shima.
Koli Shema.
Okay, so you see, what's that first letter of that sentence?
Kuf. Vov.
Kuf.
Lamet. Yud.
Okay, the next one down. Okay. Now we have a kuf.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next sentence begins with a what?
Reish.
The next one begins with a what?
Ayin.
Ayin. In Hebrew, that spells the word kara. Like someone, God forbid, who loses someone, they have to do what's called kriya, which means they rip their cloth. So that word means to rip. What's the next word? Let's keep going. What's that? Shin or sin. What's that next? The next verse. The next verse. The first letter.
Tov.
Tuf. And what's the next letter?
Vav.
Nun.
Nun. Nun.
Oh, no.
What word is that? Anyone recognize that? That's a strange word, but
Nidebot.
These 6 verses are an acronym for an expression that says Kara Satan.
Oh.
Sounds scary.
It's a scary movie, huh? Remember the skit? Those you remember, you guys are too young, but there used to be the skit on Saturday Night Live, the church lady, and the church lady was played by what's his name, Dale, forget his name, and he dressed up as this church lady woman. It was a funny thing, and then I always turn back to the person who was interviewing and say, "Gee, what is wrong, Satan?" and it was all about, it was a church person's perspective. Well, people refer to as Satan, but that's rooted in Jewish philosophy and Jewish law, and even in the Talmud talks about this concept of something called the Satan. And on Rosh Hashanah, we're actually ripping the Satan. So what is this Satan thing? Is it some devil guy with a pitchfork saying, ha 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 ha, uh-oh, he's ripping me? What does that mean exactly? What is it literally, in Judaism, what does it mean? Because we're actually right here in this holiest moment of the year, one of the holiest moments of the year, Yom Kippur at the end, we say Shema is a very holy moment. Here, Rosh Hashanah, we're blowing the shofar. It says here, on some level, we are ripping the Satan. We want to tear the Satan.
It would be our evil inclination.
That's one aspect of it, is our own evil inclination. Let's go further, that we go beyond, not just necessarily evil, but what is the word sat? Or we could say evil. But what does the evil inclination do? What is the job of the evil inclination? What does he want to do? She want to do?
Everything.
Huh?
Opposite to everything, just what is godly.
Right.
It's exactly opposite things.
Literally, what does the word Satan mean? It means a distraction. A distraction. Think about it. Today, everyone's distracted. We have phones. We're totally distracted. We live in the world of distraction. I mean, when I was like a teenager, a book came out that changed the whole world. It's called Driven to Distraction. And it became a new thing called ADD. And now the whole world became ADD. Every teenage kid, problematic, ADD. Everyone, adult ADD, child ADD, everyone's got ADD. What does the ADD mean? To be distracted. Not to say that there isn't a problem. I'm not a psychiatrist or a doctor. I'm just saying there is a continuous idea in our times of being distracted. But the word literally Satan, the evil inclination, is not necessarily a person who's out to get you to do evil. It just is an entity that is meant to distract you from what's important, distract you from what is godly, distract you from your mission in this world, distract you from doing something good. There's a Jewish event going on that's an incredible, joyous occasion. Let's create a distraction so people don't get involved. Let's turn it around and bring controversy. Let's distract. And that's the job of this entity called the Satan, which Hashem created, because he likes the world to be a little more fun. He wants life. He doesn't want us to be robots. He doesn't want everything to be just exactly, the way we want it to be. He wants there to be a little bit of challenge, free choice, the ability to make your own decisions, and distraction. Now, distraction for every single person is different. And it's very difficult, because no matter how much we try, how many Torah classes we go to and learn about this thing called the Yetzer Hara, we can't help it. It gets into our lives, it gets into our minds, our psyches, the way we think. We get depressed, we get this, we get that. The Satan gets his way in, so to speak. But on Rosh Hashanah, by blowing the shofar, which means what we said earlier, reaching into the depths of who we truly are, in our neshamas and our souls, because that's the essence of who you are. You're not just a guy born in this, or a woman born in this country, in this neighborhood, to these people who was raised in this way, but that there's an inner neshama, an inner consciousness, your essence, your godly essence of who you are.
It's almost like a reset button, I think, in a way.
Beautiful.
It restores the balance, kind of like.
How do you reset? It is a reset button.
Almost.
But in order to reset it, you gotta like this story of this guy Kitsis, he had to go through a hard. Sometimes the resetting button can become somewhat painful. We don't want it to be painful. Hope it doesn't have to be painful. We want it to be breaking the heart. But you're right. It's a reset button. It's a great analogy. It's about getting back to the core of who I am, why I'm here, and what does God want from me. So how should the head of the year look? What should the head of the year look like? It should not just be a day that we just forget what it is. We do celebrate on this day. We get together. There's community, family gatherings, eating good foods, particularly sweet foods, wishing each other positive things, learning, classes, extra prayers. All these things really are part of how we want to utilize these moments. They're very special moments. And by the way, it's not just, you think about it, as I mentioned earlier in the analogy of the head, so too it should be that way in the beginning of the day. That's why in the beginning of the day, it's not just get up and just forget about, at least a few moments. Rosh Hashanah is a period of time, 2 days of the year, it could be 10 days of Tshuva, but in the beginning of the day, we have a few moments where we should maybe kind of like get in tune with why we're doing this, how to get this day going. Have a Rosh Hashanah in the beginning of the day. So, but how is that done? First of all, we want to rip apart that entity, the reset button. Let's reset the button. But it's not so easy though. A reset button just means just reset the button, right? Unplug. Oh, the internet box is not working. Let me unplug it, restart it. It's the first thing they tell you every single time. And 50% of the time it works, and then sometimes it doesn't work. But here, the reset button means what? That's the reset button. But it's getting to the true core of who we are. Actually, it's spoken about in Torah. Satan is an angel, is a malach, but its job. It wasn't an angel. Angel's a messenger of God, but it has a purpose. It doesn't have free choice. It's not a human being. Every angel doesn't. They don't have free. They don't choose. They just do what they're supposed to do. Kind of like dogs. Just that's it. Actually, maybe dogs choose. I don't know.
Well, they have a mind of them, don't they?
No. Angels don't have mind. They do what they're supposed to do. His job is. He was sent to this world to distract us from our purpose, because that makes the whole thing. Once again, it makes it so much more interesting.
They're like agent Smiths in Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. In the Matrix, there was what are the names again? Johnson.
Agent Smith.
Agent Smith. Johnson, the guy with the glasses. Yes, but everybody, the Matrix is one of the most quoted movies in Torah classes because it has the most Torah-based references. Right. I mean, think about it. Those are involved with sports. It makes it so much more fun when the game is like you're watching, say a Super Bowl when it's like 50-3. It's like, that's horrible Super Bowl. You like to see it to the end, to the final minutes, like a field goal in the last 3 seconds. Yes, that's a Super Bowl. That makes it more interesting. So God said He wants us, our lives to be He wants us to be successful at what we do, but He also wants it to be interesting. He wants us to earn something. So He sent down this thing called, now it has different levels to what this means, this Satan thing. But today's a day, Rosh Hashanah is a day that through the Shofar, and what the Shofar represents, and through the energy of what this day represents, so we're kind of break that entity called the Satan. Break that thing that kind of distracts me from being who I truly am, but getting to that core treasure that I have inside. Anyone have an example of what maybe a Satan is in their life, or someone, or not in their life, someone they know? What is a good example of a distracting energy that keeps us?
Negativity. Number one for me.
Depression, negativity, right? That's right. I could be doing so many great things, just that voice of the negative voice that goes off inside. Dave, what is it?
What is it?
What is someone you know? They're Satan. Their distraction from doing good and from living their life the way God wants them to live.
I guess I think social media.
Social media. Okay, I think what he means to say
Actually, social media can be used.
Okay, let's talk. I think what he means by social media. Social media means when a person is so distracted with other people. Maybe what you're saying is, a person is so, instead of being in the moment, they're always thinking about what's going on somewhere else, or B, someone else's life, and thinking about what everyone else is doing instead of me just thriving in what I'm doing. I mean, social media can be helpful. If you need to do something positive and sending a positive, healthy message to other people. But when your whole life is, oh my God, what's going on with this person? Oh, how come they have that and I don't have that? How come it's Labor Day weekend? Why are we sitting here in Manhattan on Labor Day weekend at a Torah class when all these cool people are in the Hamptons enjoying themselves? And I'm sitting here, I didn't go anywhere for the weekend. Oh, look on Facebook, look on Instagram, look at all the fun things going on in the Hamptons this weekend. So you could be looking at...
Could be a Kabbalah in the Hamptons right now.
Well, it could be Kabbalah. Okay, fine. That's how we transform the Hamptons and make it a holy Hampton. Anyway, but the point is that, yes, I guess you could say, when we're distracted about thinking about what other people, meaning every other person in this world has their own mission, what God wants from them. And if I am focused on thinking that I have to be like that person, or why do I not have what they have, that is a distraction. That is a Satan. That is, because by the way, why is the word Satan itself means distraction. Sitna is when you veer. It says in Hasidic philosophy, there's a whole discussion on the concept of Satan comes from the word to sitna, which means like when you're on a road and all of a sudden you start to go like this and like this. Anyone ever drove in a car with me before? I don't know. Anyone ever drove in a car with me? Sometimes sometimes I have a habit to kind of like drift into other lanes. Just sometimes I just drift. And next thing you know, you're in one lane. Next thing you know, you're in another lane. And next thing you know, you're going on your way to Texas. That's what happens. That's the way the Satan works. It kind of like, think about it. How does the distraction say, oh, just get up and just do something completely different than you did today? No. It just, a little this. Just make this, you know what? Even though you were inspired about something, maybe just cool down a bit, just a little bit less. Just why do you have to do so much for it?
I'm thinking of when Rabbi Friedman gave the lecture here.
Yeah.
He was talking about how sometimes we look at our significant others or in relationships, we don't look at the person itself, we look at everything around the person, which is a distraction. I think he said it's a distraction.
Total distraction, totally. So you might any type of unhealthy is you could say, and then it gets worse and worse. Then it gets to the point where it becomes extremely unhealthy, and it's destructive in a person's life, and it just brings you down, and it makes you forget why you're here in this world. So we need to, like you said, the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the reset button. Now, in the teachings of the deeper parts of mystical Judaism and in Kabbalah and Hasidus explains that the world and time works similar to the way the body works on a daily basis. That we wake up in the morning, we have this new energy, this new rejuvenation of life, and then as the day goes on, it's kind of like the energy. I mean, there are some people get more energy at nighttime, but generally speaking, as the night goes on, we lose that energy, and by going to sleep, we begin to re-energize. When we get up in the morning, we're fresh and new. That is, according to a Jewish mysticism, exactly what a year is. A year is the beginning of a new energy that comes into the world on Rosh Hashanah, and it goes throughout the year, and by the end, towards the last few moments of this year, which happens moments at the conclusion of the year, we come to the point where it's like almost like the energy of that year kind of goes away, and we bring in a brand new life and energy. So the reset button, like you say, is hit. But it's about not it's bringing a new energy, a new year, a new life, and new possibilities as on the global level, and new possibilities on our own personal human level in overcoming what I need to overcome in my own life, not in your life, not in your life, not in your life. Everybody has their own life, what they need to do. But on this day, there's a brand new energy, and that's why once again, this is the head of the year. This is the head. This is where this is where from everything flows out from this time. So therefore, what is the most holiest thing? So you say, well, God, Rabbi, I don't know. I really want to make sure I use this head time properly. This is how we do it. Starting from what Shofar is, we get into the meditate on those moments of the blowing of the Shofar. Think about what that means. Getting to the core. What really matters? What does Hashem really want from me? Not, am I going to be going to heaven? Am I going to go to hell? Am I a bad person? Am I a terrible person? These are all Yitzhak. Actually, those are all the voices of Satan. Those are all distractions. But really, what can I do more in my life to utilize what I am here for? I'm alive, which means I matter. Hashem created me today.
Isn't what you just said more the concept of the Goyim, not our concept?
Correct.
Right.
Everyone's so caught up. Everyone makes religion all about themselves. Everyone's all focused on what they're planning. They're like planning. People have their plan how they're going to live when they get older, right? You have your what they call that thing, your retirement. your house in Florida, and then you plan for what's going to happen afterwards, after post Florida. You plan for what's going to happen after you die. So if I do good deeds, I'm going to have great things after I die. Great. Okay, that's nice, but that's not the essence of what it's all about. That's not what Rosh Hashanah is about. Rosh Hashanah is about how do I connect with the King of all reality, with the essence of all reality, which I have within myself. How do I get more in tune with who I am? How do I rip up that distraction? So it's not all about. This is not just about me going to heaven or going to hell, or not going to heaven, or not going to hell. But it's rather about how do I make this heaven? How do I bring heaven down to earth?